All right. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, I believe, right? So it's January 12th, Tuesday. Welcome to our first OSM call of the year. So happy New Year, everyone. And we got a pretty somewhat packed agenda, I would say. I'm going to go through some updates, and then we also have John who will talk about the release process for OSM. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it off. So the items that I'm going to just kind of update the community on, we have been looking at uh, a common way to emit metrics, and one of the popular projects out there is open telemetry. So we did some investigation. We're excited about what the project means and a lot of issues that it resolved. Our assessment with the project is that it's in its early stages with both alpha and beta APIs. And the biggest thing about the Open Telemetry project, as it relates to OSM, is the lack of support for the Envoy proxy at this point. So even if we were to look to do some instrumentation with Open Telemetry, we wouldn't get a lot of the data plane metrics, which are pretty key in a service mesh. So at this time, I think we're going to allow the project to kind of mature and see what it could provide here. See if we could do some integrations here down the road. So for those who were interested about our open telemetry integration, that's where we're at today. So we'll again just we'll maybe take a look at it possibly later half of this year and see if it's gotten a little more robust for us to utilize. All right. And secondly, for users, I know we've had a couple of discussions with some customers, and they were looking at the ability to bring TCP endpoints into the mesh. So this is our TCP route functionality. And those who are familiar with Kubernetes 1.18, I believe they introduced the app protocol attribute in the services spec. So we actually do have a working implementation of this. And this is kind of dependent on some things that need to change with SMI, specifically the V1 Alpha 4 APIs need to change to actually support this app protocol feature. So we'll be working with the SMI community and their maintainers to see when we can see a next release of the next version of APIs. And then that should allow the TCP route support to be much easily integrated and used, so to speak. All right. And then last thing I wanted to chat about was the ingress feature. So we got a lot of questions from customers. Hey, I want to make sure I have a, encrypted or secure channel from end to end. So all my ingress resources, then talking to backend service mesh resources. And we do have this working with HTTP, so not an encrypted ingress. And we do have a working implementation of this. We got to do a lot of testing, especially around the Nginx ingress controller. There's just a lot of dials and knobs with Nginx that we need to kind of boil down some of the core features that we want to support. And I believe once we do that, we can start to ship or provide the documentation as far as what is actually supported to have a true end-to-end encryption experience, which means you'll have a cert with your ingress object coming into the cluster, and then obviously that'll translate to MTLS on the back end within the service mesh itself. So those are some key updates from the project board. I just wanted to kind of broadcast out there for the community. And without delay, let's get to the good stuff. So we got John on deck, and John, take it away and let's talk about how we release things with OSM.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. So hi, everyone. My name is John Hune. I'm an engineer at Microsoft working on OSM, and I've been involved in establishing and iterating on the release process for OSM. So today I'm going to give an overview of how we make releases for OSM. I'm sorry, there's nothing especially new or exciting with what we're doing, but we do want to let our users know what they can expect out of OSM releases, and we definitely appreciate any feedback if something particularly does or does not work well for you. So specifically, I'll be covering what's in a release, how we approach versioning, our Git branching, and how to cut a release and how you can get involved and help us out. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, so for what's in a release, we have three main components. We have the GitHub release on GitHub that contains our release notes and our pre-built binaries for the OSM CLI. We have container images on Docker Hub in the Open Service Mesh organization. And we have a Helm chart that we host on GitHub pages for the OSM repo. And then for versioning, we plan to release a new minor version of releases every month with new features and fixes. So for example, v0.6.0 is a new minor release. And then until OSM reaches v1.0, these releases may or may not include backwards incompatible changes. And lately we've been making release candidates or RCs. So like for v0.6.0, we created an RC1, did some testing on that for about a week, and then we published v0.6.0. And then patch releases. So just yesterday, we published a v0.6.1 patch release. And those patch releases will only contain fixes and other backwards compatible changes, but no new features. And currently, we're planning to only add patches to the latest minor version. So since we patched v0.6 with 0.6.1, we're not going to backport any of those changes to v0.5.0 for the time being. So for our branching strategy, we use Git branches to help us separate our regular development from our fix-only commit streams. So all of our development happens on our main branch, and then releases are cut from these release branches. And these release branches are made off of main when the first new minor version is cut. So for example, when we created v0.6.0 RC1, then we created this release v0.6 branch. And then all patches for a given minor version will live on this branch. So for example, this v0.6 branch will contain the tags for 0.6.0, 0.6.1, and any other 0.6 releases. So then when a patch is needed, so if we have some commits on the main branch that we want to backport to a release, we will take those commits and then cherry pick those onto the release branch and then cut the release off of the release branch. So when we talk about actually the mechanics of cutting the release, we have a CI pipeline that kicks off when we push a Git tag. So for example, all of the CLI and the container images will, their release process gets kicked off when we create a V tag with a semver after that. And that CI pipeline will actually create the GitHub release and build the OSM CLI for multiple platforms, and then adds those pre-built binaries to the GitHub release. And then that will also build and push the container images to Docker Hub. And then we do have separate chart tags in case in the future we do want to release the chart separate from the CLI and the images. So the chart CI pipeline gets kicked off when we have this special chart tag with a version after that. And that will add the new Helm chart to the repo that's hosted on GitHub pages. So far we've been releasing the chart and the CLI and container images in sync, but those cycles may diverge in the future as OSM stabilizes, and we may find the need to iterate on the chart separate from the CLI and container images. So there are definitely ways that you can help get involved. So feedback on the current process is definitely welcome. And we do have a build and release image label with several issues open that we could definitely use some help with. All right, are there any questions about our release process?
Yeah, this is great stuff, John. I have a question actually. You mentioned the CI pipeline, and I wonder if you want to tell us a little bit more about how that works.
Sure. So I can go ahead and take a look at our action logs. So we have this release workflow. So just yesterday, we did publish a v0.6.1. So let's take a look and see what we have in there. All right. So we do have this step to set the version from the git ref, and that is just basically setting a variable that we can then use when we create the binaries and the Docker images. So if we look at each of these steps, so the binaries, we do some housekeeping stuff. We actually build the binaries. We generate the release notes. So a section in each release for the release notes. This changelog section is purely just generated from git log and then added to the release. And then these notable changes are created afterwards with kind of the highlights that may be a little more descriptive to end users than the raw changelog. All right, so then after we generate the release notes, we'll create the actual release and then upload all of the pre-built CLI binaries and then do some more housekeeping stuff. And then for the Docker images, it's fairly similar, where we need to do a Docker login, push all the images. We do push images with the actual version tag, so like v0.6.1, and we also tag the images with latest in case folks want to use just a floating latest tag that may change underneath them, but that will always have the latest release. Bridget, did that help answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also curious if you go back over to the releases in general, like all of them, it looks like, at least in some cases, just like releases, get rid of the tag, get rid of the V061. Because it looked like you were signing. I'm just kind of curious, like what, I know it's kind of a work in progress, but I'm wondering if you can inform people about what we're doing around signing. And like, because some are listed as verified.
Oh, I didn't notice that actually. Oh, I haven't
Yeah.
noticed that before.
I
So
think that
yeah,
has
I'm not
something to do with
sure.
how the stuff is signed, but I'm not positive exactly how it's implemented.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure either. So I wonder if, because I think it's talking about this specific commit. So I wonder if,
Oh,
because
so
I
it might
know
be around the commits.
yeah, I think some commits that you make on GitHub, like from a merge or something like that, will, like GitHub automatically verifies them, and
Oh,
then some of
gotcha.
them aren't. So yeah, I think,
Oh, so
yeah,
hey, we can add this to our documentation is exactly what our processes around verification and signing will be.
right.
Nice. There's a lot.
It does
There's a lot
bring
here.
up a topic, obviously, with the recent events in the news around signing. So maybe we should document kind of the chain of trust in our workflows.
Yeah, that would be good to make that a goal to have all of our releases verified. Yeah, that's not something that we're explicitly doing currently.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were before you asked me for questions, and I have many, of course, obviously, but you were also showing us kind of the wish list, like if people were going to get involved, if people were watching this later and were interested. Do you want to kind of bring us back to, all right, how do you get involved in this?
Sure. So I think the first step of getting involved would be downloading the release and try it out and make sure that things are working kind of the way you expect. And then we also have our Slack channel and the mailing list that's listed in the README if you do have any questions about that sort of thing. And then, yeah, dive into the issue queue with that build and release label. If something looks interesting or something that you need, or if there's something that you need that isn't listed there, that would also be awesome to open up an issue or start a discussion in either the Slack channel or the mailing list, and we can definitely kick things off from there.
Awesome. That's great.
Great. Thank you, John. It's good stuff. All right. I think we made it to the end of what was on the agenda. I see we do have some people who have joined the call. So I will open it up to the floor if anyone wants to chat about anything or have any specific questions around OSM that I see a lot of the maintainers on the call that we can answer for you. All right. I think everyone's okay. All right. So that's it. Okay. So that'll end it for us today. We will be back in 2 weeks. So that'll be Tuesday, January the 26th at the same time. That's 10:30.
I'm shaking my head because I'm like,
is that
oh
not
no,
true?
that's you're thinking of the SMI community meetings, which are every 2
Oh,
weeks.
I'm sorry.
And the OSM community meetings are only once a month.
Yeah,
So
once a month. That's right.
we'll be back February 9th.
Automatic mode, right? Yeah, I was just in auto. All right. So yeah, sorry. Thank you for that clarification, Bridget. We will be meeting back on February 9th, Tuesday at 10:30 Pacific time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time.
And I believe we'll have another demo next month. We're planning to have a demo of logging. So we're going to continue down this path.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Okay. With that, we will go ahead and end it. Thank you all for showing up and participating, and we will see you next month, February 9th, for the next OSM call. Take care.
Thanks, folks.